Hello and welcome to the day ahead. It is the 12th of January, a Monday. I'm Nadine Blaney. Well, Australian futures are pointing to a 0.33% or 29-point lift at the open after Friday's rally on Wall Street pushed the S&P and the Dow to fresh record highs. The Nasdaq led the gains with AI stocks in favor once again, but it was a broad-based rally which also saw the small-cap Russell 2000 index hitting an all-time high. The best performers on the Nasdaq, Intel, Lam Research, and ASML. On the S&P, SanDisk, Builders FirstSource, and Intel. It was sentiment around the U.S. jobs market that inspired the risk-on rally. The non-farm report showed a cooling in the jobs market, but it wasn't dire. The U.S. economy added 50,000 jobs in December, even as annual wage inflation rose. Now, the jobless rate did contract more than expected to 4.4%, but economists say much of that was likely because of a dip in the participation rate. In terms of Fed expectations, markets are pricing in a 95% likelihood of a hold from the Fed next time around. And we heard from Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta President Raphael Bostic, who said inflation is at the forefront of his economic concerns, saying that the Fed needs to be laser focused on making sure that everything is helping to keep inflation in check. In Europe, German exports unexpectedly fell while industrial output rose in November. Meantime, Eurozone retail sales climbed more than expected in November, with consensus being the currency bloc ended a turbulent 2025 with low but stable growth. The U.S. 10-year dipped on that mixed jobs report. The yield was more than 1 basis point lower at 4.165%. The 2-year Treasury note was up more than 4 basis points, with that interest rate cut being less likely. The U.S. dollar rose on the same basis, notching its second straight week of gains. The Aussie dollar is buying 66.9, and Bitcoin up just marginally to 90,562. Oil gained around 2% on Friday, with supply worries linked to the intensifying protests in Iran and an escalation of attacks in Russia's war on Ukraine. Now, the U.S. president met with oil execs as well, telling them to invest as much as $100 billion in Venezuela to expand its production. Gold prices rose on Friday as investors weighed weaker than expected U.S. payrolls data, along with broader policy and geopolitical uncertainty. Well, today we'll be watching out for the household spending index, also Rio Tinto shares. They fell more than 3% in London and came under pressure in the U.S. as well, while Glencore rose more than 10% on the potential takeover that would create the world's largest mining group. And it is a very big week globally. U.S. quarterly earnings season kicks off with J.P. Morgan Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Citigroup, Goldman Sachs, and Morgan Stanley all reporting. Here at home, as I mentioned, household spending today, monthly consumer confidence tomorrow, and retail sales coming through on Wednesday. That's just to name a few. And of note in the U.S. on the macro front, it's inflation, retail sales, and industrial production. Well, that does it for the day ahead on this Monday. I'm Nadine Blaney. We'll see you tomorrow.